All right, guys, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this episode. Lindsay and I dove deep into all things sales, mostly the qualitative stuff, but we talked about mindset. We talked about how you were going to be rehearsing. We talked about how you're going to be handling objections. We're talking about asking more questions. We're talking about building a lesson plan for sales. This episode is absolutely packed. Stick around, and we'll see you guys at the end. You must be able to sell something in order to have a successful gym. Everything in the affiliate starts with a sale. Daniel Chaffee. We're going to start with that. Absolutely everything.
Right now. Holy
So, we're going to talk about sales, everybody. We're going to talk about what you guys don't like about sales, how to get better at sales, what Lindsay has seen across many different professions in sales. She has been a gym owner, worked at a gym, sold timeshares.
Yeah, for like a month.
Yeah. Didn't sell any, so we won't talk about that.
That's not true, actually.
And then is the head of sales for Best Hour. So she does a lot of phone calls with affiliate owners, unpacking their gym, figuring out what's going on there. But that's what we're going to outline in this show. So stick around. We're going to cover a bunch of different stuff. So give a little background. So who are you and what do you do?
Like you just told the people what I do.
Yeah, but they don't know your full background.
Okay, well, my CrossFit background, or you
can
want
give
the
whatever
whole
background you
life
want.
Story?
Yeah, you can start with Kansas into Hawaii and then circle back to Virginia.
We don't have enough time on this podcast to be able to do that. So.
I'm not talking about your relationships. I'm talking about your CrossFit life.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, well, gosh, been in this space for almost 20 years. Got into it randomly. I thought I was being swindled into like a Zumba type fad. Turns out
Zumba's still around, just for the record.
I know, but I didn't really want to do jazz hands, so you know.
Not with those little fingers.
Not with these hands. Okay, more like blades, right?
Yeah, okay.
All right, we got it. Okay. Essentially, started CrossFit and then fell in love with the methodology, of course, for myself, and then ended up coaching. From that, evolved into gym ownership. Owned a couple pretty large, successful affiliates at the time. Then sold that, moved to the East Coast, and then you swindled me to your gym during COVID. You did. You really did swindle me to your gym.
I don't even know what that means.
You were like, hey, you should come work for me. I was like, nah, I'm good. Until I wasn't.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe I should check it out. And I fell in love with it.
Lindsay and I met in Miami in 2013 for the first time ever.
Yes.
And that day I told her, hey, at some point I'm going to be your boss in every facet of your life.
I don't think you ever said that, actually.
No.
We were.
But I am. No.
You are.
No, yeah. No, but so how many gym owners would you say you talk to on a monthly basis?
I should probably know that number, but it's a lot.
That's okay. So, yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. So
it's a lot.
A lot of context with regard to things that gym owners struggle with. So if you are interested in what we do and how we help affiliate owners, Lindsay's probably going to be the first person that you talk to.
1,000%.
Just in order to see what you got going on. A tremendous amount of background as an affiliate owner, but also in training as well. So
yeah, similar stuff.
Let's just start with this.
Talk about it.
Do you think there's a major misconception about sales in the affiliate owner space?
Yeah, I think people feel like they have to be like this creepy, crusty, sleazy salesperson.
Like, why is that the case, though? Because I feel like we've all bought something from somebody that wasn't the case. Why?
Well, because it's a stereotype, and I think that that does exist, but I think that people feel like that's what most sales feels like. Like, have you ever really had like many great experiences at a car dealership? It's usually like they're trying to, maybe not as a dude, but like as a girl.
The last one was super easy. I called Mike and he was just like, I'll have a car out for you on the lot. And I was just like, all right, Mike. Okay, so just like, but Mike was the only reason it was pleasant was because Mike was a client.
Right.
And then he ran the dealership, and he was just like,
so an anomaly, and then
he was just like, take it home. But my point stands, which is it doesn't have to be sleazy.
It doesn't, no.
Which is he was just like, take it home, and then if you like it, keep it. And I was just like, do I have to pay you?
Right.
He was like, you have to pay. But I've been thinking about that. Like, why is that the case? Like, where did that start? Because, you go to a restaurant, I don't feel like they're sleazy at a restaurant. If I go buy clothes, I don't feel like they're sleazy at a restaurant.
No, I disagree, because sometimes like you get attacked. I hate getting attacked in stores.
You get attacked at restaurants?
Like, Well, if you want to like upsell on a wine bottle or like the specials and like, how about this and try that?
When was the last time you got hard sold?
Okay. This literally just happened. I had dinner with a couple of our members at not HK, the Porch. And the waiter was like over the top, like, well, we have this and have you tried this? I'm like, I've been here 1,000 times. I know what I want. I don't like,
Okay, so let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's use that as an example.
Okay.
So what did this guy, what did this guy do
Barry.
that made
Sorry,
it?
Barry.
Sorry, Barry. I can imagine your tip.
I remembered his name. That's how aggressive it was.
I can imagine your tip wasn't great, Barry. What did he do that made the sales experience poor?
He was pushy and he didn't listen. He was so caught up in his own like spiel. He didn't read the room, which is my face looking at you like, stop talking to me, Barry. I already know. I said no already. This is what I want. But he didn't listen. He didn't ask questions. He just basically went down this whole rampant and he just kept talking. That was the big ticket thing there.
That's a big, so anytime we work with affiliate owner and are struggling with sales, I usually have a handful of questions once we get past the numbers and the math about what they need and what they don't need. But I always ask them, like, when you're sitting down and talking to somebody, who does the majority of the talking? And if it is you as the affiliate owner, shut your face.
Yep.
Stop talking. So you brought up a good point, which is he wasn't asking questions. And that's, if anybody who's ever seen me like work through that concept of the control V, that's the whole premise of the entire model, which is just like ask questions. That's how you stay on the trajectory and in order to get where you want to go. Did you ever have that issue?
Yes. Like I would over speak or I would be thinking about the next thing. And this is like when I was more novice to it, and I'm trying to think of like, what's my next thing in my script that I have and trying to get to that. And also keep a timeline because I would love to talk to people all day, but at the end of I have other clients to get to. So trying to keep people on track while also making them feel heard would kind of derail that. It was kind of like a catch-22 there. So I would not listen as intently as I needed to. I would almost like listen to respond or move to the next thing. And I had to slow down and I had to ask more questions.
Waiting to talker. That's what I was probably still sometimes, but just waiting to say the next thing. I'm like, you're talking, but I'm not really thinking about what you're talking about. I have something I want to say. That's really ill. I'm trying to gather my thoughts and I'm going to tell you, and I'm not
do that.
I'm not paying attention at all. But that could be. How do you change that?
You just have to be more self-aware and you have to be so engaged with what they're communicating to you and and it takes reps, it takes practice because you have to know where you're going and you're just like a roadmap in the gym when you create a lesson plan, right? I'm not having to think about the next thing because I know my plan and I know the route that I'm taking and I can always like maneuver and weave and bob depending on where the conversation takes me.
That's a good analogy. So
thank you.
If we were to do this on the fly, which we are, so
oh God.
If you were to make a sales lesson plan, what would that look like? Give me the big ticket. Like, give me your start and begin the workout. If you've got 3 benchmarks on that lesson plan?
Numero uno, most important, build rapport.
Okay, unpack that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so building rapport, you have to build trust. It has to be like, who are you? How are you? What have you done this week? How was your weekend? How did Murph go? Depending on the conversation and where you're at in the sales process, if it's like a closing call, it's like, hey, how are your children? How did that soccer game go last time we spoke? Or how did that event go? Or this happened recently. Hey, did you get all moved into your new house? You have to, again, it's just caring about people and getting to know more.
Okay,
more about
so
them. Rapport first.
So rapport first, and we could sum that up with ask questions that have nothing to do with the topic at hand.
Nothing.
So something that is personal to them. Now, you might not be able to get directly there if it's a consult in your gym, but you could ask, how's your week been? Did you have trouble finding the place? Like, did you get a chance to sign the waiver, right? Like, these are all things that are kind of about them, but then you can get in a little bit more detailed now. Okay,
I think
so
people rush that part though. That
Which
part's
part?
actually rapport.
Rapport.
I think, and I was guilty of this too. I would just like want to get, because I'm, you know me, I'm very direct and I just want to get to the nuts and bolts of the thing, but you have to build trust. And if you build that rapport and that trust, you can ask for the sale as many times as you want, right? If you have that bond and that connection with them and you can just like shoot the shit and just be a human,
right.
that it works far better than if you're just like a robot.
Yeah.
Well, how much revenue does your gym bring in and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work like that.
I want to come back to asking for the sale, but so I want to stick with this lesson plan they're making. So
Sure.
one is
Rapport.
right? Ask them questions, nothing to do with the sale, nothing to do with what you've got going on, just that about them. What is are we going to do this like inside out method, or are we going to do?
We're going to go straight down. We're
Okay,
not going to go inside out.
So we're
We
going to
won't
go
do that
step
yet.
one. What's step two?
Step 2 is discovery. So it's more questions, but it's discovery about, well, in terms of like gym, well, in terms of sales, you know, it's like, what are your gym numbers, all that kind of stuff. But if you are doing it, selling a membership, what are your goals? What are you currently doing? What do you eat? And like all of those types of questions, right? It's like the rapport has nothing to do with,
What do you want?
yeah, what do you want to do? Yeah, why are you here?
Yeah.
What brought you to us?
Yeah.
What's going on in your life? Discovery.
Okay.
Because all of that, I hate to say it like this, but all of that is all the ammunition that you need later.
Well, they're giving you the answers to the things that you're going to talk about later. We've talked about this in the car. I'm nicer than you are. Okay, so step number 1 is rapport. Step number 2 is discovery. And then what do we do?
Yeah, so from there, it's, okay, how can I tie back their challenges to what we do? So now it's kind of summarizing, you know, what are the hardest things for you? What are your challenges? Great. What does success look like for you after that? And then we can go into the program and we can literally connect the dots for things that are specific to them.
Okay.
So how do we get you there? What does it look like? What do we do on the gym floor every day?
Okay.
How do I get you to show up, you know?
Okay. And then what?
And then from there, you go and you ask.
Ooh, this is where people get sweaty palms.
Yeah, they really do.
All right, so let's talk
It
about.
should not be that hard, though.
Let's talk about the ask, because I do think people get this wrong. I know I've gotten it wrong many times.
Yep.
So, do you have examples of a good ask versus a bad ask?
Yeah, you ask and then you shut up.
So that's a what? A good or a bad?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me an example.
Well, I think first you have to go in with the right mindset. Like you have an opportunity to literally change someone's whole life. That is profound. And asking for the measly, you know, 100 and whatever bucks per month to change someone's life, not just in the gym and getting abs if that's what they want to do, but like in between the ears and what happens outside, like that is profound. And I will never apologize for offering that to somebody. I know what we do here, and you have to have confidence and the right mindset to go in and ask, because then the ask becomes a no-brainer. You're like, yeah, of course you should be here.
If you could dissect the ask, what would the anatomy of that look like? Like what would be so you've got the make the ask and then don't talk. But then if we go specifically to the ask, what would make a good ask?
Just so it needs to be tied to the things that are important to them. So if you listen to what their schedule is like, or you know how many days per week, you unemotionally, you just run, and unapologetically, you just run through the data, and then you're like, it's very simple. I think this is where it gets overcomplicated, and you over-explain things, and this is where you lose it, because you ask, and then you start backtracking almost. Hey, which one do you want to go to? Which one would it best works for you in your schedule?
Okay, so I want to unpack what you just did there, which is that one, what Lindsay just did, and she didn't do it by accident, it's probably just memory at this point, is she did not ask a question in which you could go there's tactics for doing this both ways. But that specific one was you were asking a question in which no is not a possibility.
Correct.
Meaning, hey, which one of these would you like? I'm not going to say, do you want to join?
Correct.
And
so you assume the sale always.
Right, then it's weird. So sometimes the awkwardness of the sale is not because of them, it's because of you, because you asked a bad question, at which point I'm going to get a no. And that whole scenario is compounded if you're not at all skilled with dealing with objections, because they're like no, and you're like, oh, right, and you don't know what to do.
The sales process, it doesn't start until the objection portion. That's where it starts. You're gathering all this data, but that is where the real work comes in on the back end there.
Okay, so this highlights the importance of discovery.
Yes, 1000%, because they've given you everything, and if they haven't, then you haven't done your job.
Yeah. Okay. And then what would be so you gave another so that was the version where you're not going to get a no. You could do the alternative version, which is you could ask for the no, but you have to ask for it very specifically. That would sound something like, would you be opposed to? And I'm gonna ask them, be like, hey, would you be opposed to like feeling way better and losing weight and being super fit?
I don't like that tactic.
And you're like,
personally,
saying
it's not my personal preference.
Right. I'm just saying it is a tactic, right? So it's like if you can use it, and the reason I bring it up is because everybody sells differently, and I've seen people that can use the negative very effectively. I probably wouldn't use the negative either, but I've seen people do it, and I'm like, that was fucking slick. I was like, that was good. So again, it's all about like, if you understand the tools and you understand how to use them, you can tailor them to you.
You know what I think it's interesting that you just said, this is kind of like off a little like tangent, like asking in the positive. I think we get that from seminar staff and coaching effectively.
Probably.
We teach in the positive. We don't say, hey, don't miss hip extension. You say, hey, squeeze your butt at the top of the jump or whatever the thing is. It's like you teach the positive, or here's your correction. Hey, don't be in your toes.
Right.
Stay in your heels.
Well, I think personally, if I was going to use, that alternative version, I would use, for me personally, like my variation of it would be with humor or sarcasm.
You could pull. So if I would probably use that in terms of that strategy.
Like if I was coaching somebody and be like, hey, would you be opposed to that person like moving well? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well then let's change the plan, right? Because you suck right now. So you could use it that way, and because I think that is part of rapport building. I think, but unless you're just naturally witty and funny, you're gonna need to practice that, because you'll say it weird and it'll come off like super awkward.
Yep.
But it is a tactic, right? In order to be like, oh, I like this person, they're funny, like that was
Agreed.
Well timed,
yes.
right? So you can use both, but we're not suggesting that you're like hard selling and pressure selling and stuff like that. You shouldn't need to, because you have something that they want.
That's and another tactic too is like sometimes like when people are like on the fence, if you just kind of take a step back, like then they'll want to come forward. Basically,
say more.
Basically, like it's almost like you take it away. It's like the red rope effect, It's like, oh, you make it more exclusive, or you take. What
would be an example of that in a gym if you were selling me a membership?
I'm trying to like think of an example.
I don't know. I'm on the fence.
Are we role playing?
I don't know if I want to do this.
Well, you told me your goals. You told me all of these things that you want to accomplish.
Dad bod is terrible.
And why?
You laughed way too hard at that, Nate. To be honest with you.
This is a literal conversation that we had. That's why I'm laughing.
Great.
So you told me all of these things that you want to accomplish, and I know that we can do that here. So we've missed the mark somewhere. I've missed the mark somewhere, right? Tell me, like, at a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, yup, I'm in. Where are we on that scale? And they'll be like, I don't know, 6. Great. How do I get you to a 10? What's missing for you? And just, again, be quiet and let them answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
CrossFitters, I've purchased hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment in my life. I've been doing CrossFit since 2007. I've owned 4 affiliates. I currently own an affiliate in my basement. And let me tell you this, Rep Fitness is by far my favorite equipment. First of all, it's amazing quality. The price is right. And what I love is I talk to somebody that I know, that knows me, and that understands my needs. Now, cool thing is, as a family member of Best Hour, you can save big over at Rep Fitness. Go to repfitness.com/best hour and save on your next equipment purchase.
All right, guys, if you like this content, please subscribe to the podcast, but understand we work with affiliates. If you are interested in building your business, understanding strategy, building a better community, and building better coaches and careers for them, hit the link somewhere around this video, and we'd love to have a call with you. Because you do this a lot, right? And obviously, like, what's the timeshare cost?
A lot. There's different packages. So the ones I was selling were anywhere
Still need a
from...
timeshare.
You don't want one.
Yeah.
Okay? I lasted
This is not good sales.
1 month.
I was only asking based on, because there's
Anywhere from 50 to like 100,000.
right. So there's
High ticket.
I'm literally asking because there's a difference in high ticket and
Very high ticket. That's not a small amount.
So now if you look at high ticket in a gym, high ticket could be anything from 1,000 to 5,000 depending on what you were selling. I was talking to a guy yesterday. He said he sold a $20,000 package.
Holy, good for him.
Yeah.
What did that entail? I can't even.
I mean, I find it hard to believe that there was $20,000 value. But the point is like, hey, sometimes you need to sell something ridiculous in order to break a belief about, hey, people are not going to buy this. This is too expensive. So this is why when we work with gym owners, like we will always package whatever we decide is appropriate for them based on what they want to sell, price point, revenue, expenses, all that other kind of stuff. And then we'll look at paid in full options, assuming that there's no state legal restrictions around selling that, and have them start with that. Because that's usually anywhere between $1,500 to $2,200, depending on your price range. And I like to have them package that into their sales process because people will take the offer. And then the gym owner will be like, oh shit, $160 is not something that people are like gonna be like thrown off by. This person just cut me a $2,000 check, like in the blink of an eye. So I think sometimes you have to put something in there that you are not necessarily thinking that somebody's going to take advantage of, because somebody will take it.
Until somebody does, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. The first time I ever sold a paid in full, a guy asked me, he was like, you guys sold paid in full? And I was like, yep. No idea what it was.
What does paid in full mean?
No, I knew what paid in full was, but I hadn't done the math. I didn't know what the price point was. I literally just responded immediately, yes. And then I was like scrambling to try to do, and I just like came up with a number effectively and gave it to him, and he sold it. And then, but that changed sales for me. I was like, oh, okay, selling $150 to $180 to $200 is nothing compared to selling $2,500 or $8,000, $10,000, $20,000
Well, the reason
packages.
that happened was because you did your job the rest of the time that you were speaking to him.
Maybe.
I mean, you couldn't. I mean, he's not just going to drop that money for no reason. He either really liked you or he liked what you were selling.
It's probably that.
Probably that.
Yeah.
You're right.
So let me ask you this: Where should a gym owner start if they're lost in the sales process? They're like, the sales, it makes me cringe. I can't sell. I had an email today that was, it was about sales, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, then we need to focus on. Oh, no, it was a conversation I was having yesterday about the numbers. And they're like, our retention's good, which everybody says that. And then I'm like, what's the number? Turns out it's not great. It's like the nutrition question.
How's your nutrition? That's pretty good. What are you eating?
Yeah.
Like
noodles. And so then we looked at the front end and I said, oh, you don't have a retention problem. I was like, we could improve this, but mathematically, like, I don't know how much that's worth. It's just spending our time over there. I'm like, you have a sales problem. I'm like, so it's one of the few scenarios. I'm like, I don't think we should worry about the back end of the funnel. I think we should go into the front end of the funnel, and I think we should figure out what's going on there, because it was like all sorts of misses on the front end.
Right.
And there's multiple places you can miss on the front end. If you look at just a standard sales funnel, it's probably 5 steps on the low end. If you miss on the first 4, and that's if you improved each one of those by 20%.
That's an incredible increase.
You could double the size of the business with no additional leads. You could mathematically double the size of the business from a growth standpoint.
Yep.
So, what do you think? Where should somebody start in sales?
You gotta have a plan. I think you just have to have a plan, because if you are not, you need to rehearse. You need to.
Nobody does this, by the way.
Nobody, ever. And you should have a script. Not that you're reading from something. Dear God, please don't do that. But like, you should write.
Listen, if you need to read from it, then you got to read from it. But if it's like reading from a lesson plan, but eventually you won't need it. But if you need it, use it. But it won't take you long to get rid of it.
It's not going to be like this crazy thing either for an affiliate purpose, right?
Okay. On that note, if you need a script to tell somebody your memberships, we need to talk about your memberships.
Yes.
Meaning, like, if you can't just say them,
Yeah.
you have a package problem. Like you need to completely redesign.
I have a lot of those conversations too. I'm like, okay, great. What are your current options? They're like, well, I got to pull it up. I was like, whoa, we don't know what these things are.
Yeah.
You have so many options and you're all over them. Yeah, that's another issue. So,
so talk about the rehearsal, right? Because I mean, so Marcus like oversees all of that. Like how much rehearsal have you and Marcus done on the sales side?
Oh my gosh, a lot. And
that dude's a sales ninja.
He is. I am so grateful to have him as a mentor. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. You like that?
That's a through line to you.
But really, Marcus did all the hard work. So I'm just kidding. He did. No, so in the very beginning, I shadowed him, just like I would if I was going to be a new coach. I watched how he navigated certain questions, how his flow was. Obviously, like over time, you imitate in the beginning, right? And then you find your own path. But the point is, I'm on calls, I'm following his script that he has, right? And I'm going through and I'm watching him hit all the points, and it's natural, and it's, he just bobs and weaves, and you just start to pick up things. And then he would let me take over, much like if you were a new coach on the floor. Hey, I want you to, in this class, you're my intern, I want you to give the intro. You're going to do the whiteboard brief.
Yep.
Great. Now what I want you to do is you're going to do the intro, and then you're also going to do the general warm-up, right? And so that's where I started. It was like, first it was rapport, and then I went into discovery, and then later it was the last half where I was telling about the program, and then asking for the sale, and then eventually objections. But the script needs to, I practiced that thing outside of my calls, and anytime there was a tweak, I had to go, just like practicing for a lecture for seminar staff. I got to pay attention to what my facial, thankfully it's on Zoom so I can see my face. Like,
right.
But if you're face to face with someone, you have to make sure that you are warm and welcoming.
Right.
And what mannerisms do you have? Are you?
Did you say mannerisms?
Mannerism.
Yeah, mannerisms, everybody.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Sorry. I will see myself
What are
now.
what are mannerisms?
Mannerisms, thanks.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Better? Okay.
Okay.
I just over enunciated there.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things.
You put the emphasis on the wrong
If
syllable.
you recorded yourself and you caught yourself saying something weird like that, probably should fix it. So.
Yeah. So I was telling you this earlier. I'm working with a speech coach, and he asked me
I need to hire him now.
Yeah. You don't know how to say mannerisms. And he asked me a very specific question, and he said, how do you open? And I was like, well, I'll do this. And he's like, no. He's like, what are the first 5 to 7 words out of your mouth? And I was like, oh shit. I was like,
What are they?
I don't know.
Oh. What are they now?
Well, so that was the exercise we were working through. It depends on what you're talking about,
Sure.
whether if it was sales or if you're giving feedback to somebody or if you're giving a presentation, but really spending a ton of time, because how you open is arguably more important than how you close, because how you open sets up the close. It sets up how the other person perceives you as either knowing what you're talking about or not. It sets up your confidence level with regard to how you're going to approach the conversation.
Ooh, that's a good one, because
It sets up a ton of stuff, but really, and so I was thinking about a bunch of different scenarios, like how do you, because we were working through a bunch of different scenarios. One is like, okay, if you're giving a webinar, are there tactics you can use to bypass, like, oh, hey, everybody, like, is everybody check? Like, those are the first words out of my mouth now. And those are not putting you in a position as somebody who's going to help the end user.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a gym owner, and really think about, like, what are the first words out of your mouth, and be like, can I help you?
Hi.
Or are the first words out of your mouth and be like, are you looking for somebody? Like, or are they be like, hey, Lindsay, right? You're like, yes. Okay, this now is a totally different, but you have to rehearse that. And I was thinking about when I used to practice for running circles, and I would put the medicine balls out, and I would do a 30 to 60 minute circle with those medicine balls. And I was rehearsing exactly what I was going to say and when, from the jump, right from the start, all right, everybody, we're going to go through the squats before we get to that. The Scott. We're going to go through the squats.
Yes.
Redemption. Mannerism, Scots and mannerisms. So, but I would go through that because what you wanted to do was to make sure that whenever game day was, whatever, whether it was a sale or running your first class or giving your first whiteboard brief, that was not the first time that you had said that sequence of words with that pitch, with that change in tonality, with those mannerisms, right? You wanted it all. You wanted to. You have to rehearse if you want it to eventually become natural to you, where it doesn't seem like you're trying. You have to rehearse. You have to rehearse.
Yeah, and so like I would start with a script, like Marcus's script essentially, and I'm like, I wouldn't say it like this. This is not how I would.
But you have to say that version before you get to your version.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's do you have like a? Because people talk about sales and just like the mental framework or the mental mind or the mindset that you're in for sales. Having a bad mindset in sales is devastating.
You will not succeed.
People can smell it on you.
You will not. It'll be bad. It doesn't go well. Okay, if I'm having an off day, like.
So what do you like to do in order to get yourself in a good mindset for sales? Either if you think all the way back to running max effort or.
So this is I was thinking about this question actually when we were talking about doing this podcast in terms of like, how do I prepare myself? This job has forced me to get better routines, have a routine. I would just like, I don't know, I guess I'll wake up at this time.
Wake up at noon.
Not quite that aggressive, but it's forced me to do that because if I start my day well, my mindset, I'm not scrambling going into things, and I'm organized, right? And I have all my ducks in a row, the dog's taken care of, I've had my coffee, I have a moment. If I coach to 6 a.m. at Rife, like I've done my workout, then I can kind of go home, chill out for a second, get out of get away from your laptop. That's a big thing between calls or between clients. Like you need a moment to step away and just like, sometimes it's heavy and you got to dust off. Like, what if somebody came to the gym and they told you a really personal story and why they're there? Like, that stuff can be, when you want to be able to treat every single person and give them the effort and attention, just like you would in a CrossFit class. It's like, this has to be your best experience. And for me to be my best self, I have to be quiet. There's some days where Marcus wants to talk and I'm like, I cannot talk to you. I cannot, can we do this tomorrow?
He likes to talk it out.
Yeah, but like at the end of the day, after I've had like a gnarly day of calls, and he goes through the same thing too. It's just, he's less than me. I need alone time. I need quiet time to decompress. So starting off the day in a way that sets me up for, I feel good about what I've done here, whatever your routine is, right? That's thing one. And then the prep that goes in for each call is very important. So you can't just like go on there and wing it. Like you should know things about, I have to know things about people before I get in the call. That's it might be a little bit harder in the.
No, it's not. I was literally talking to a guy yesterday and nominally harder, but let's just say that if you do get a lead, it is not terribly difficult to find somebody on social media.
Correct.
At which point you could do, this whole process might take you 4 minutes. All right, Lindsay, Andrew, go on there. Okay.
I found that you
really like walking through the airport for whatever reason. But knowing those things, is really, really important. And you're not talking about an exponential amount of effort. You're talking about
5 minutes.
5 minutes, maybe.
Literally, yeah.
Maybe. And if you go back to where you started, which is like build rapport, think about the first 7 words out of your mouth, and then think about you presenting them with a piece of information that definitively tells them that you did some homework. For somebody that's just walking in your gym, I'm not talking about.
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal that they're just like, oh, they're like, hey, I saw you're a Patriots fan. And they're like, I'm a Patriots fan. I'm like, yeah, I looked you up. And they're like, this immediately tells me that this person.
Creepy though? No, not in this day and
It
age.
depends, yeah. But that immediately tells me that this person is operating at a different level.
Yes.
And now here's the interesting thing about that is like, this now makes you sticky. As a person. They're now intrigued by this whole process.
I like that.
Because they now want to know more, and I'm like, oh, that's different. Like, I like this. I don't even know you. I've not paid you anything. You've not done anything, but you took the time to go just look up a handful of information. Now you won't be able to do that for everybody. Like it's not, but listen, if that improved your sales by 15 to 20%,
That's massive.
meaning like, okay, I sell one more person every single month, but because I'm getting 10 leads, but now I can go from selling 5 to 6.
That adds up.
Yeah, that's 12 more people per year that you're going to
By a little,
close.
little teeny tiny
Little tiny thing, which is just do a little homework on there. And I think it will, I just think it puts you in a different mindset, number one, which is like, hey, I'm here to help this person.
So we've touched on this a couple times, and what has to happen is we have to always be in control of the sale, right? And so the mindset thing and going in, if I'm already going in with information that already puts me, I'm already the expert in my space, right? I need to hang on to that. And now if I'm going in armed with whatever teeny tiny information that I have with them, you're still in control.
If you're somebody that struggles with confidence in sales, this is a very simple exercise to do. Think about your OG favorite clients and think about the impact you've had with those people, and then just run through a couple of wins you've had with those people and take that into that conversation when somebody walks into the gym.
You know what's funny that you just say that? So one of the things in the very beginning, when I was definitely struggling with imposter syndrome, because it's a new thing, I would go to our Slack channel and I would look at our client wins, because I'm like,
it's
massive.
It's just endless.
Right, but it just reminds you of like all the awesome stuff that we do, and that like, yeah, I know that we do this every day and that people win, whether it's an affiliate or for best hour, but like just seeing that stuff, it fires me up, and I'm like, hell yeah, dude, like you need this, let me help you. Let me coach you through this and let me help you understand like what is possible. Because just like people coming into the gym, people don't know they don't know what's possible. They're like,
well, I'll give you an example.
I've been going to Globo Gym and I've seen nothing, no results.
I was talking to a guy recently, and the question is like, hey, is it worth it to do affiliate you? I'm biased, everybody.
Same, but we see it every
I think
day.
it is. And I immediately thought of an email that I'd gotten literally that morning from a boxer. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to put their business out there. But the email was maybe 3 sentences long. It was like, hey, Fern, just wanted to give you an update. Like, finished paying off my debt, and I'm taking owner benefits of 15 to 20 grand a month at this point, and I'm doing X number of things for my staff. And he's like, and I can't tell you guys like how much I appreciate all the things you guys have done to get me into this position. He said, because when I bought the gym, I never thought this was possible. So this person's asking me like, if it's worth it. I'm like, I'm thinking about this email I got this morning, and I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, it's a steal, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I know, I understand where you're at, but the answer is yes. And the reason I say that is because if you want to have those conversations with confidence, which you do, because if you own a CrossFit gym, you can absolutely help people change their lives. You're doing it already. You just want to help more people. It's like, think about the people that you've already had success with. Think about the people that you've helped lose 50, 60, maybe 100 pounds. Think about the whole flock of 9 a.m. folks and all the moms in there that now have pull-ups and like to talk shit, who were previously afraid of getting bulky, from lifting weights. Like, think about your 6 a.m. crew, 50% of which you would have made bet your mortgage that they would have never stuck around, and they're all here after 7 years. So think about all of those people. You're going to walk into that sale with so much confidence that you might be too confident in that scenario, like where you're just like, oh,
yeah, we're the shit.
Yeah, right. Which is like, you don't want to bring that kind of energy, but the point is, that confidence matters, because that confidence will manifest itself in your tone. It'll manifest itself in your facial expressions. It will manifest itself in your posture. If you are selling from a place of no confidence, you'll probably be closed off like this.
Yeah, sit like an orangutan,
right?
I do.
Yep. Versus sitting upright, versus looking someone in the eye.
That is
like
huge.
These are all things that you really need to put yourself in that position, and you need to do that before the sale. You need to get your mind right before the sale, and that could be 30 seconds, or it could be 5 hours beforehand. But like, work through that. Because if you own a gym, like hopefully you have somebody that you can sell.
Well,
today.
think in terms of like, okay, say I'm an affiliate owner and I'm doing all the behind the scenes thing and I'm working on the business, and then I have to take myself from the office and I got to go coach a class. And I've talked with a lot of our clients in terms of like, well, how do I like disconnect from, I'm stressed out about this. I'm like, get out of your office and like 15 minutes before class, just go be in the gym space, look at the whiteboard, review your plan, take a step outside, take some breaths, get away from whatever that thing is. I promise you will go into that thing fresh and just pour into that person when those people when they're there. It's no different here.
Yeah. And the reason we're hammering this, guys, is because I'll kind of go back to where we started the episode, which is everything in the affiliate starts with a sale. Like you run a brick and mortar, you have bills to pay, you have a staff that hopefully you're paying, you have a staff that you would like to give opportunity to, you have things that you want to achieve personally and professionally. All of those things are an outcome of the impact you make on the floor, and then learning how to do sales in a way that is genuine and unique to you, but with all of these common and core principles. We know that CrossFit is the greatest thing since sliced bread with regard to its effectiveness. But if you are not confident in your ability to provide people results, then that's gonna hinder your ability to grow your affiliate. It's gonna not allow you to train somebody else to do sales, because eventually you're gonna have to hand that off, or you're gonna wanna hand that off. And these are all things that we wanna continue to give you guys tools for. So last thing is, what are some common traits of affiliates that you think do it well, that sell well?
Just become better listeners. I really think that's like one of the key components there. And it's not about you, people that overtalk or, they try to relate by giving quips about their own life. I think that can be like a detriment. So it's like, just be more interested in them than you are about yourself or the product that you have in here. And always circle back to not necessarily like your product, but like the pain of inaction for them. Yeah.
One of the little tricks that I learned years ago with regard to trying to get myself from talking too much was, how do you may not be armed with a follow-on question. So let's just say you're somebody this person has thrown you a nugget, and you're like, I know there's a follow-on question here, but I'm not quick enough on my feet to like figure out what it's going to be. This is a gem. You say two things. You say two words. Say more.
Tell me more about that.
You just say more.
Yeah.
Tell me
more.
Keep going.
Yeah.
And so what you've done now is you just said, hey, I'm interested in what you're saying. I want you to keep telling me, but I've given it in the shortest possible version, which is say more. And they'll just keep going. And it works 100% of the time. And so an example would be like, I just really struggle, with, accountability. Say more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say more.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, that's 7 things now, which is important, because when somebody's at the gym, at least some part of them in a lot of instances wants to back out. But if they verbalize all the things that they're struggling with, you have way better odds of getting this person to make the commitment that they actually do want to make, but they're scared to make. And so that you can help them.
Those questions provide clarity for you as somebody who's selling.
So I think, say more. Tell me more about that.
Well, because I think a lot of people will
Or what do you mean?
Yeah. I think a lot of people will just take the answer at face value and then not dig in a little harder. It's like, no, I need more information.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that? Like, what's going on here?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Say more.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're saying. That one is like, if you're somebody who struggles, just use that. You could have a whole conversation and only say those 2 words with somebody.
Well,
they say something, you say more. And they say something else, you're like, say more.
I think following up to and trying to summarize what they've told you is very important too, because if you haven't asked the right questions, those things will not be aligned. Like, no, that's not really what I mean. I'm like, oh, okay, let's go back in and like, what did I miss here? Like, obviously I didn't ask enough questions. Like, hey, tell me more about that. So fully understand what is in your brain. Yeah.
And there's 2 major components to sales, everybody. There's the quant and then there's the qual. The quant is the numbers, right? What are you selling? What do you need to sell? What's the numbers? How does retention stack up to your lead flow? All of that stuff. You need to know those things. It actually can make you more confident and can make what needs to be accomplished much more clear to you. But even if you know those and you've not really done this deep dive into the qualitative components of doing sales, because most of us are really passionate about CrossFit, and therefore we bring this idea that we don't want to be sleazy to the sale, which I very much agree with. But you're not, most of the time, you wouldn't have been sleazy anyway.
No.
You just brought that idea with you to the table instead of just saying, oh, what we do here is pretty rad, as is evidenced by all of these awesome people here. You're going to fit in just fine. This is going to be awesome. How can I help you? And I think really focusing on the qualitative component of that. You got to do the math. You got to figure out all that stuff. You got to know it. You got to do your rehearsals. And then it becomes the soft skills.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of stuff in here with regard to the soft skills, but I do want to stress, so we're going to end the show where we started it, which is you cannot be successful unless you can master the art of sales. It's not a thing. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. We appreciate you listening and choosing to have us help you in your passion for coaching and affiliate ownership. You can find more episodes just like this on all podcast platforms. If you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to us on any social media platforms, or you can visit www.besthouroftheirday.com to book a call. If you found this episode helpful for you, please share it so that we can help other coaches and affiliate owners to help build a bigger and stronger CrossFit community. Thanks for listening.